Have you ever felt this deep sense of longing, like a kind of spiritual thirst? Well, it turns out that 700 years ago, an anonymous mystic actually wrote a guide for that exact feeling. It's basically a roadmap for the soul's journey, taking it all the way from fear and separation to perfect love and union. So, the big question is, what can this ancient map teach us about our own inner world today?
So the entire text kicks off with this incredibly powerful invitation, which comes directly from the words of Christ. And it's not a command, right? It's more of an open call to anyone out there who's feeling that profound emptiness, that thirst. It totally sets the stage for a journey and makes this promise of fulfillment for anyone who's looking for it.
And that, right there, raises the central question for this whole explainer. First, what is this spiritual thirst the author's talking about? And second, if we actually accept that invitation to drink, where does this path, this whole journey, actually lead? Okay, so let's start at the beginning. The journey, like so many great stories, really begins with a problem. The text describes this fundamental human condition, this feeling of being totally lost, and that feeling is what it calls the soul's thirst. So this is square one. The author paints this really powerful picture using the metaphor of the Meer der Welt. That's German for the sea of the world. The idea is that the soul is just adrift, tossed about in this dangerous, confusing ocean, totally separated from its true home and its purpose. And that feeling, that sense of being lost, is the source of the deep thirst we've been talking about.
But here's the thing. You're not meant to stay lost in that sea forever. The text doesn't just leave you there. It immediately provides a solution, a way to get across those dangerous waters. And the way out of all that chaos is what the text calls a heilige Brücke, a holy bridge. This is really the central metaphor for the whole thing. It's a path that's been built specifically to help the soul cross over the danger and finally find a safe shore.
So, okay, what is this bridge? Well, the text is super clear about it. It represents the path to God, and it's made possible through the figure of Christ, who acts as that connection between the human and the divine. The important thing here is that it's not a path you have to figure out on your own. It's a way that's already been prepared for you. And crossing this bridge, well, that's the soul's entire journey. All right, every journey has to start with a first step, right? And according to this text, the very first motivation for getting onto that bridge, well, it often comes from a pretty surprising place: fear. The author even has a specific term for it, knechtsche Furcht, which you can translate as servile fear. Now, this isn't some kind of holy reverence. No, this is the raw, kind of self-interested fear of punishment. It's that feeling you get when you look at your own mistakes and you just want to escape the consequences.
But here's the key detail, the nuance. The text says this fear is a necessary start, but it's not the final destination. Think of it as the thing that makes you stop in your tracks, turn around, and finally step onto the bridge. But it's an incomplete motivation. You can't cross the whole bridge powered by fear alone.
This whole idea leads to a really crucial distinction between two guiding principles. On the one hand, you have the law of fear, which the text links to the old law. Here, your motivation is totally external. I'm going to do this so I can avoid punishment. The goal is to move past that, to the law of love, or the new law. And here, the motivation is completely internal. I'm going to do this because I truly desire union with what is good.
So once fear has done its job, it's gotten you onto the path. A new, much more powerful motivation has to take over, and that motivation is love.
And this is where we see that fundamental shift in perspective. The soul isn't just running away from something negative like punishment anymore. Instead, it starts moving toward something positive, that connection with the divine. The whole question in your mind changes from what do I need to avoid to what am I truly seeking?
But, just like fear, love isn't that simple. It has its own stages of maturity. The text describes what it calls an imperfect lover. This is the soul that started to love God, but it's still for pretty self-interested reasons. They're serving God to get something back, comfort, personal pleasure, spiritual rewards. It's a very transactional kind of love, and the author warns that it can fall apart pretty easily when things get tough.
Okay, so here it is, the whole map of the journey laid out nice and clear. The soul's trip across this holy bridge really has three distinct stages. First, you start by fleeing sin, and you're driven by fear. Then, you move on to practicing virtue, motivated by love, even if it's still that imperfect, self-serving kind of love at first. And finally, the destination, the other side of the bridge, is reaching a state of perfect union. And that's something you can only achieve through a pure, completely selfless love. And this brings us to the end of the bridge, the final destination, the whole point of this profound and transformative journey. So what does this perfect love even look like? Well, it's defined by its complete and total selflessness. The soul that gets to this stage is no longer asking, so what's in it for me? It desires absolutely nothing for itself. No rewards, no comfort, no special status. The only desire that's left is the desire for union itself, to just be one with the object of its love.
To describe this final state, the author uses this really beautiful analogy. It's like two friends who are so incredibly close that they become one in spirit. Love, in its purest form, actually has the power to transform the lover into the very thing they love. That sense of separation that we started with, being lost in the sea of the world, it's just completely gone.
And so we're left with this big question. I mean, this is a map that was drawn 700 years ago, rooted in a totally different world. But its core ideas, moving from fear to love, from self-interest to self-giving, from separation to union, they feel absolutely timeless, don't they? So what can this ancient guide to inner transformation teach us about the thirst we might be feeling in our own lives, right here, right now?